Good evening, is Joyful Christian Hermit. I've been very busy today again. Um, it was interesting yesterday when my neighbor Brian was here. Such a lovely man, father, husband, son in law. He wants to have a mother in law quarters for his mother in law because he says, she's wants to help take care of her and she's elderly, he said. She said she's 73. I said, I'm nearly 74 and a half. But I said, how wonderful. He wants to build like a mother-in-law suite in the front, in his front yard. It sounds strange, but his house is positioned on a curve. So it's more wedge-shaped going back, so he doesn't have as much garden space in the back. But he has space in front on one side of this curve that would be in the setback for building. I mean, it would be allowed. So and I know they would do something very tasteful. They'd have to. The HOA would insist, I'm sure, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Um, but as he had to just, I already had the tiles cut, the smaller ones for each side. So he came over to lift up a big 2x4, the final tile. And my daughter had come and he came over early. And so my daughter was helping me get the board across the kitchen window. So he agreed, was very kind and mixed I kept calling it mortar. I'm sorry. When I'm in pain, who knows what comes out as far as words, but it's adhesive. I don't get the words right, or sometimes I can't even think of the word, but it's adhesive. And I used VersaCut. I used VersaCut for large format tile, a powder, mixed it with water. I had the water there and dumped in a lot of the VersaCut powder mix. I used white, not gray, because of the tile, but they do have it in gray. The white is actually an upgrade and stronger, and it's specifically for large format tile, and it can be used for exterior work. But I also have a bag in the garage of a similar, and it's by the same company. I also got it at Home Depot, and I really like that extra much. But I was just using up the bag I had, and the VersaCut's fine, but the other one is even a more fine powder, so it's but this was great, and you just mix it to it's a thick paste, so that when you spread it on, a thin coat, not super thin, maybe, well, a 1/4 inch or more thick. And you want it to have. I also said yesterday that the notch was 0.6 of an inch. No, it wasn't. It's 10 millimeters. It's about 1/3 of an inch, as opposed to 1/4 inch. So I moved up to the 1/3 of an inch deep notched, U-notched trowel, and the spaces between is 1/4, because it was getting increasingly needing a thicker beads. It makes these strips going up, and then you put a thin coat of the adhesive on the back of the tile itself, even and smooth, and it's probably a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch thick on there. You don't want to see the tile underneath it. It's not, but you don't want it super thick. Well, it depends on how much you need. I'd already gotten used to the depth that it needed to be as we went up toward the ceiling, and the piece beneath it, I didn't use the deeper notch, and on the big 2x4, and I had to stuff adhesive in on the sides and underneath and above, and I was concerned, so I used the deeper notched and put more adhesive on the side pieces, and that it was all um, thick and strong. And then the last row of tile, the big 2x4, and on each side, about 10 inches wide by 2 feet. These last pieces up at the last row, I used the thicker trowel, the deeper trowel, U-notch, because I wanted it to really adhere. And we also shoved it back a little bit more rather than, at that point, I didn't care if it was perfectly plumb. It could be off a little bit, but I wanted to tilt in, and Brian thought so too. In fact, he verbalized the thought, but I had already upped to the thicker, deeper notched trowel to make sure we had all of it covered, so that it would adhere. Make sure all those ridges were adhering with the adhesive I put. It's called back buttering, that I had back buttered on the tile. And so I sat up there, and so then when it was nearly plumb, it wasn't pulled away that much. It had lots of adhesive behind that piece, but you don't want too much where it's, you put it in and it's squeezing out the sides. So I think it was just right. But the piece below is sandwiched in, it's locked in, and I jammed more adhesive. The bottom part was okay going up, but we'd had to pull it out in order to make it plumb. We had to pull out the top of it just a little bit to make it plumb with the 6-foot level going upwards, so that it would be, if you look down the side of it, it's not slanting out and it's not slanting in. So it's really especially with the large format tile. Of course, this is the first time I'd used any tile near that size. I think before, upstairs, I think I had a foot by maybe 18 inches. And that's the largest tile I've used until this. Well, the shower. But I didn't, I just put, I used that was 16 and a half or 16 by 31 and a half inches. The bathroom tile is. And I had faced a drop-in tub. I had built a area to drop it in. We'll go into the bathroom sometime when I get back to working on that tile, which will probably be fairly soon, because I'm trying to focus on tiling, and also though I have to do the stonework. So it might be when the weather changes, or if we get a bad day, I'll work in the bathroom on the tile. I'm going to finish the kitchen backsplash tomorrow, and hopefully also start doing some of the stones out in front. I'll show you guys what I'm doing, because it's easy to do. It's a matter of doing it. I started out, maybe it was in 1999 or 2000. I did a shower in our basement of this 1918 craftsman style house, that the whole thing had to be cosmetically redone. But there were some Amish men who did the roof and put in the replacement windows, and what else did they do? Oh, they had to jack up the back porch area, and I enclosed an area, so it added to the square footage, and it was a garden room. So that was nice. I used it as a garden room and storage, but people after me redid the kitchen and included it in the kitchen. So it got really amalgamated into the house proper. But those, the showers that I did there was a shower down in the basement that I started with, practiced, and I just used 4-inch square tiles. That was back then. It was fine, and it suited the house. Had had the subway tile size been really popular then, I would have gotten subway tile. But that was before I had a decent car, so my son had to get it when he would go to the city to his Catholic high school. He would stop for me, and all I knew was I figured they'd had the 4-inch square tiles. So he picked up just white. And I think we got them at a good deal. I got a big box of them. And bullnose trim, I had to learn about that then. And so that was my indoctrination in tiling. And then in the next house that I had built, though, I tiled both bathroom floors. So that was the first time I tiled a floor, and I used 6-inch tile for that. And they looked sort of stone-like a little bit. They weren't terrazzo. They weren't, it's not terrazzo. I can't think of the name. But anyway, then on the island, I did use 3x12 subway tiles because it was that era back in the early 1904 farmhouse. And I did the same, just very plain. I think they were very light off-white. They weren't stark white. And then I used also subway tile for the kitchen backsplash, but that was a color that really went well with the quartz countertop that had some, maybe it was probably a gray beige type. We were entering into that period, but I didn't accentuate that color too much, but I picked up it had some hues of what I painted the walls. So anyway, and with that, and that time I had a very long narrow bathroom, and I got these sinks, Kraus, Kraus. I love their sinks. I love their faucets. If you want vessel sinks. So they were sort of loosely, they were called tulip shaped, but they were loosely, I thought even practically looked like a butterfly, loosely formed. So I had 2 of those, but what I used for the countertop was concrete look large tile. Those were 12 by 24 inches. That's what's upstairs, are 12 by 24 inches. But thin, not the 2 feet by 4 foot, half-inch thick tile that the fireplace wall is. And I put pieces of it in the stairwell inserted and above a window in the entry to sort of have a flow and to solve a problem that I had from a handyman who got a little bit, excited about taking out more sheetrock than he needed to do some work. And I wanted the electrician to do the wiring, and the electrician then came after the handyman had cut out all this stuff. And I'd already painted that wall way up high, up to, it was very treacherous, 2 coats. And so the electrician then redid fine-tuned the wiring, but said, oh my, I didn't need to tear out all this sheetrock. So I inserted tile. That's the first time I've done that is here. And it was tricky. I had to put in 1/4-inch cement board and sort of build out then with the tile. I did, you can't have it sticking out. I didn't want it's sticking out from the wall, and unfortunately, not evenly. The studs weren't even, or I got too much adhesive, and Sean was lifting them, and he'd been sick, and I rushed, and so I'm going to have to adjust trim on it. I'm putting trim all around it because there's no bullnose for this big tile. So, but that's the first time I put it in the wall. But the island, then I used it as this countertop, this cement look. And I used just 16th inch, barely even less than this huge tile. Very fine little thin space between. No more than a 16th of an inch it was. And a true 16th of an inch. On these things that I got that say 16th of an inch, the tile doesn't fit up that tight in most instances with it. It's more like maybe 3/32 of an inch. So a 16th plus half of another 16th, that would be. So yeah, the countertop turned out great. And I just had a small little tile saw, it was like a foot square itself. And did those big pieces, and I was able to cut narrow strips to put as I created my own bullnose, in essence, or my own front piece to the countertop, about an inch deep, to make it look like it was meant, it was a countertop. It just didn't have a slab of tile. It had an edge to it, about an inch or an inch and a quarter deep edge. And that really looked sharp. It was a very long counter. I'd used dark cabinets, stained, and got a mirror at Target, a long, narrow mirror, or not very high, just maybe it was 16 inches by probably 8 feet or something, or 6 feet at least. One of these very long, narrow, and I think it was gold or something, and I spray painted it to sort of go with the color of the cabinets, sort of a dark brown. But it's hard to describe. It wasn't a brown. It was iron rub bronze. That's what I spray painted it, the mirror. Because I was on the island farmhouse, I used iron rub bronze door handles, and light fixtures had the oil rub bronze theme. And I'd gotten those on sale, discount, in fact. It's one of the first things I got. It was at a Lowe's. I walked in and saw this set, and it was marked down. Oh, I think I paid $50 for many lights. Got a real deal. And so they'd clearance these lights out. And they meant clearance when they said clearance. So it all worked out great for this farmhouse. Oh, it was fun. The farmhouse really was fascinating to do. And that's what I learned on the construction aspects too. And here I did construction, and I fine-tuned it a little bit as far as the framing. But I did more sheetrock on the island. I did the whole thing. Well, a guy named Johnny, who worked for Raphael, he liked to sheetrock. He was good at it, very good at it. And so the others were working on the roof or something. And Johnny didn't have anything to do, and Raphael asked him, do you want him to do some sheetrocking? So he sheetrocked one long wall of the living room and across the front of the living room. He did all that by himself. He lifted these 12 foot long, 4 foot sheets up, He was good, and I observed him, and I learned a lot more about sheetrock from watching Johnny. I was having a bad back day, a few days there, so I was laid up, and I had a mattress on the floor, and he just was out there in the living room, and I was on the floor on a mattress in the living room. Then I would keep moving the mattress around depending on where I would, what I was working on, and to make room. I so that I would not be in the way with my mattress of whatever room was being sheetrocked at the time, and then I had to mud it. And so I learned a lot from watching him. It's any way you can learn it. It's if you can learn to read, you can learn to do this kind of stuff. If you can learn to ride a bike, you can learn to do this kind of stuff. So it's a lot of fun. But here, the stakes were higher because this was is a much larger home and has this premium lot. Of course, the island, I had a great view and all. But the island, my goal was just to get something that would be saleable. And of course, I dedicated it to Christ. But the more I got into it, and of course, the trials came, the awful stuff would happen. And I knew that the devil didn't like it, that I was working my way off the island. My mom and dad's hard-earned money was all in that house. And I knew if I didn't get it finished, I would lose some of their money, a lot of it. And so I just thought, work on it, die working on it if it takes that. But I wasn't going to lose their money. They had worked so hard. I thought of my dad traveled. He was away from the family, long hours driving, and he was a district sales manager for a company called Majestic Company. It was since bought out by American Standard, but when he was there, it was and it started in this hometown long before, probably 60 or 50 years before American Standard bought it. But anyway, my mother, though, taught high school English. And I knew, because I taught that for a few years, not long, not many, because of the accident when I was 33. But and I had a couple of years when we had the nursery school house and nursery school behind it. I worked that, developed curriculum and different things. So anyway, it's been interesting existence. But you can learn these things and enjoy and just see how things go and learn and try things. So it could be interesting. Whatever we do, we can learn and we can enjoy and appreciate whatever it is that we're doing, that God has us doing. So somebody had in a comment had wanted me to talk about my growing up in a church and what that was like. And I think the person sort of wanted to know, how did I adapt with churches? A little bit of background about my growing up years, and that I was, I don't know how you would put it, but just my experience as a Christian and in my Protestant church and then in the Catholic church. How did it go? So I think I'm going to try to, in the next few days, just try to jot down some thoughts and keep what I share hopefully concise and focused. But I think the person was rather interested also in how I managed with churches, because I think the person has had experiences herself of not fitting in. And so I want to express how it was for me. She'd like to know how it was for me. in growing up in a church, and then as an adult as a church. And even now, probably as a hermit. What's my church experience now? And it's all mystical. But that's going to need to be a separate video, and I want to try to not wander too much with it. And so I haven't forgotten a person who asked me to do this. I haven't forgotten. I want her to know I haven't forgotten, and I will work on that. But I want to do another video of an apology and an explanation of something. And then also with that video, I want to talk about, in fact, I have a couple of apologies in a way, or things that I know that I'm doing. I want to share about Brian's idea of how I should be doing the house, in what order and so that'll be in a separate video. But I did one video already, and it just seems so negative or something. And I want to just give it as an example of how even other people have an idea of how I should be doing things in here. And it's a logical thing, but it's not particularly efficient. But anyway, I have things that I recognized and realized that's more widespread than I thought. And I want to talk a little bit about that relative to yesterday's gospel reading and what Jesus says, how to be, how to act. So that will be a video. But I think with that one, perhaps, I want to include the little child Jesus prayer. Maybe I might do that even just separately, because it's been miraculous. I'm not one to do, rhyming or repeated verbal prayers. And this I only just have to say once. But little child Jesus has helped me find things. And my cousin contacted me and wanted a reminder of what it was. She needed to find something. So I'd given it to her in the past, to much success on her part with Jesus, finding what she couldn't find. And I always have success. If it's something that is still around, and I hadn't by accident put it in the trash or something and was long gone at the landfill, I've had amazing favor from Jesus as a child. I think, it's endearing to him to hear us pray this little child Jesus prayer. Whatever. And I heard it, who did I hear it from? Oh, a woman, an older woman. She was older than me at the time. It's been, probably 20 years ago, or 18 anyway. And she wanted to befriend me, and I was curious, because I think at first I was wearing the gray jumper and it made me stand out, and I didn't want to stand out. I just had already given away all my clothes. And so I thought, I'd just wear a gray jumper. I used a jumper that my daughter had that was store-bought, and just made a pattern from that and wore a gray jumper and gray socks. I dyed all my underwear gray. Everything was great. And there's a reason for all of that. But ultimately, I was taking a bath when I'd gotten out of the community of hermits of St. Bruno, because it was going not in a good direction, or not a logical, or she didn't have things ready and set to go to be having people joining. And so I knew that my diocese would need something more credible seeming. and the woman could have done it, I'm assuming, or she could have asked me to write the statutes. I would have written them. But it eventually fell apart. I got out of it. But it was hard. It was hard. I was just there again, felt like odd lady out. And because I really thought, God wanted me to be in that. And I learned a lot in that community. But we stayed in our own homes. You don't meet with anyone. We wrote back and forth with the prioress. Well, she wasn't yet. Her vicar general had told her she wasn't to refer to herself as prioress. That would be like the abbot or something, or abbess in other types of, but it was very Carthusian. So, anyway, it was a rough time, and my son was leaving for college. That very day that I decided enough of this other, the diocese had me under investigation. I'd written to them. I did everything the woman in England said to do, but it wasn't good enough for my diocese. Other dioceses in the country, it was just fine how she handled it. Got the person to the point of being accepted by the diocese. And it would take probably, I think it was something like 30 years before the first step of the community could be acknowledged by the church. It takes a long time, usually it does anyway, to have a new community start. Well, they can start, but to get them approved can take a long time. And it's important to have things approved because they double check and oh, I've got an excellent program. Or no, they say, oh, you're lacking in this, that, and the other. The diocese or the bishop or his vicar general will get involved. And the lady in in England, her vicar general was supervising her efforts to resurrect this community. And she changed the name slightly, but it was not quite the same as Carthusians. Not identically. We did not all live together. So we lived in our own abodes, whatever country we were in. And I went through a 6-month postulancy of learning and would send, reports to this woman who was prioress. And she would send back, with different comments or suggestions and things. But ultimately, I was so, I knew I needed to get, I knew it wasn't God's will for me. There was too much chaos surrounding it. Including my son was upset then. He didn't want me to be involved in things. It was embarrassing for him. We were supposed to wear a habit. And I realized with that's not hidden from the eyes of humankind. Like it says we're to be. You stand out. But I was in the tub, weeping and praying. That morning, it was obvious, guess what date? August 22nd, the pivotal day of my life, when I became Catholic, when the accident happened, and when I left that community, and also my third and last living child, left home for college. And it was out of state, so it was really far away, 3 states away from where I lived in the Midwest. So, but I heard this voice, let go, my poor gray dove, my poor gray dove. I knew it was God. I knew he wanted me just to let go of all these things. And so I thought, gray, I'll just wear a gray jumper, simple gray jumper, which I sewed. And I got the fabric at Walmart for $1 a yard or $1.50 a yard. So I was able to make it 60 or so inches wide. I was able to make it for $3, something like that. Because I'd given away my clothing when I became a hermit in this community that was being supervised by the vicar general of this woman in England. And they were hoping to have it become an accepted hermit community. And we didn't live together, so we had our solitude. It was great, and it was very focused on the religious life and on Christ and scripture and prayer during the day and reading, and we had certain times for different things. So that was, it was hard to get out of, but I knew I was supposed to. I knew God did not approve it totally for me, and well, it wasn't set up yet really well. So, and she'd had plenty of time, so I knew my diocese wouldn't approve. She didn't have her ducks in order with what they wanted to find out and be told and read about. So just different things that happened, but that message, that's how I ended up wearing the gray jumper. I had gray t-shirts and gray jumper. I had 2 for fall, spring, 2 for cold of winter, big heavy corduroy that I'd already had the corduroy on hand from some other project. And then I had a 2 for summer, lightweight. So those I think cost me like $1 each to make. So the fabric was discounted at Walmart. I got it at Walmart back when they sold fabric. So it's been an interesting experience of just going with God's flow, paying attention to the little messages. That would have been one that I could have easily rationalized or just let it go in one ear and out the other. Well, because I was already thought I was letting go. Not in the letting go that God expected and wanted. So, these are some of my little video plans, is to share the little child Jesus prayer and share some about Brian's ideas and what he thinks about what I'm doing. And let's see, what else was it? Oh, there was something else. Forget that. And I also want to share about another hermit who I'd never heard of before. Saint Mary, Merri, or Meri, different spellings for it, from France. Meridicus is his full name. But I thought, any new hermit, that's of interest. And even if you are not in the hermit vocation, but such as somebody just left a message, a comment, first time. Or I don't know, maybe I've heard from the person before, but a very lovely comment about the type of life she's been trying to live for close, 19 years, something like that, way up there, of a monastic type existence, but solitary monastic. Well, that's pretty much a hermit, but maybe she hadn't gotten into the non-canonical hermit life, traditional historic hermit, but otherwise she would have referred to herself as a hermit probably. But it was very interesting reading her comment. It's there on the video, the last couple of videos. I think it's on one of those. I have aspirations to do better videos of more content, more spiritual life. I'd forgotten about another locution I'd had years ago, and it was profound. I'd like to share that with you. So I've got things to talk about. It's just a matter of I've noticed, and I know it's true. I mean, I've noticed it before, but doing these videos, I really notice this flaw that I have, and that is of using other people in examples, and it may be their example even, but I think I should get to the point of not even mentioning anyone and just living it, living and working, manual labor, loving God above all things, and helping out as best I can with God's mission He has for me, to do my best and to learn from the Virgin Mary on how to be her maidservant, the maidservant of the handmaid of the Lord. In my last year or years or months, or we don't know how long any of us has to live. But I figure keep going as long as possible. But I've noticed this negative that I have at times been negative in my sharing. And there's no place in my life for negativity. And there really shouldn't be. So I'm trying to alter that. Just catch myself. So pray for me for that. I'd like to move on from the bare minimum but yet keep things succinct and not go on, but say like this locution I want to share. It has a lot of depth meaning to it that is so good for us and good for the, I think for anyone really. So that's what I hope to share things that will be helpful, even if it's discussing something that might be kind of a negative. I'm going to learn to couch those things. Oh, and then I also, in another video though, it's going on too long, and I'm just doing overviews and ideas, but I want to express my apologies or my awkwardness of not really knowing exactly what to do when I realized later and got trim for it. But well, anyway, I'll get into that another time. But it was something that I did that ended up not being what was expected of me. And I realized I was naive, but that isn't really, I don't think, what my vocation is going to be, is promoting something or promoting others. That's it's more the spiritual life and day by day and getting through as best we can. So God bless His real presence in us. Okay. I'm going to cut off tonight. I started just to doze off even just then. So, more to come though. The locution I want to share with you, maybe that will be next. God bless you all, and thank you, Lord, for such loving people to leave comments and to pray for me, please. I want to do a do beautiful things for God. We all do. I know we all want to. So onward, forward, and upward. Get this turned off here. There it is. God bless you.